Hey y'all, what's up? It's Friday, so I'm gonna keep it black, but I'm gonna keep it brief. Y'all knew Jeffrey Dahmer was eating black people? What? Girl, that's what I said. Spoiler alert, last week Netflix released a limited biopic series called Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, starring Evan Peters. Evan, are you okay? Like, blink 3 times fast in the first episode of the next season of American Horror Story if you need us to come get you. The series chronicles the life of Jeffrey Dahmer and his heinous crimes. From the time he was 18 years old to the time he was 31, Dahmer murdered 17 men in Bath, Ohio and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And it was in this series that I learned that not only were 10 of these men and boys black, but they were also gay. The rest of his victims were presumed to be queer, except his very first one, Stephen Hicks, and they included Hispanic, Native American, and Asian men and boys. Literally all the Browns. Only 2 of them were white. And when we hear this, we immediately think of hate crimes, right? And hate crimes are usually perceived to be derived from a place of hate or disdain. But there are a couple things I want you to consider. Number 1, a hate crime is defined as a criminal act resulting in harm or injury based on the victim's race, nationality, religion, sexual orientation, disability, or gender. And Dahmer said he chose his victims based on their body type and who he thought was beautiful. Goodness gracious. So even if Dahmer held no disdain for these black and brown boys, what drove him to continue victimizing young men of this type was ultimately the fetishization of black and brown bodies, which is an inherent tool of colonialism. Talk to him! Europeans have a history of fetishizing and parading black, brown, and indigenous bodies, black ones in particular, for the purpose of hypersexualizing them, but for all of them, dehumanizing them in the process, desensitizing white people to their exposure and exploitation. You using that degree today, boy. Which is also why Dahmer was able to get away with it over and over again. He was only playing directly into the role his forefathers gave him. Number 2, he killed those white boys because in Bath, Ohio, that's what was accessible to him. Everybody else was a matter of circumstance at the intersection of race and class. See, he'd already been exiled from white spaces in the queer community after getting caught for drugging people. Because even those spaces, even if ostracized by the rest of society, had parameters set in place to protect their constituents. You see where I'm going with this?
If you don't like black gay boys, just say that.
They don't, friend. When Dahmer found himself relegated to the streets surrounding the Oxford apartments, which was considered a drug city, he was able to take advantage of an area oversaturated with discarded, no-name individuals in an under-policed environment.
So he was the only white male in the area, which should have been a dead giveaway for the cops, but no.
His whiteness was gonna get him out of trouble every time.
And in this case, he weaponized his queerness in a very similar way. These murders were also happening in the height of the AIDS crisis. Dahmer would excuse people's complaints about his behavior as homosexual in nature, and cops would literally leave him alone because they didn't want to catch anything.
Huh?
Make it make sense.
This line of defense prevented law enforcement from even asking for ID. And if they had, they would have found that he'd been a registered sex offender since 1988 for the assault of 13-year-old Sam Saxon Thassenphone. And they probably could have saved his younger brother, Conor Saxon Thassenphone, who was abducted by Dahmer in 1991, but no, because they didn't want to get involved with no gay shit. They handed him right back to him. Yeah, they were suspended, but they sure got their jobs back. Do you know one of them became somebody's police chief after that? And unfortunate as that case was, there were 3 things about it that laid bare the systemic nature of the abandonment of black and brown people by our policing system that allowed Dahmer to roam and kill for decades. 1, they refused to believe a black woman over a white man. Glenda Cleveland, who tried to save the boy, was disregarded. 2, Dahmer was able to invoke the perceived leprosy of gay men in the 1990s. But you know what else? There was also the adultification of black girls, because Glenda Cleveland's niece, who was 17 years old at the time, pressed the police about how much younger than her the boy looked. And they still walked him right on inside to Dahmer's apartment. And I'm sparing all out the details because you'll have to do the research and watch it yourself.
Boosie said we should ban it.
Boosie, nobody is ever talking to you.
No, he's saying boycott because they didn't compensate the families who ultimately had to relive that shit.
Ooh, well, a broken clock is right twice a day now. To catch me and Obio Omalera of Create Space, a certified life coach and queer advocate of the queer community, dig a little bit deeper into what this Dahmer doc means, you can catch us in the parking lot after party, The Let Out.